Morning, everyone. Last minute, yes. Monday, I was told I needed to deliver this presentation. I was like, okay, let me figure out what needs to be done. But a quick introduction about myself, our company as well. My name is Deepak Nautiyal. I've been a qualitative practitioner for more than about 12 years, worked across different countries, India, Middle East, and in Singapore for the last 6 years. And our company's joined the dots. I see a few familiar faces, but lots of new people. Obviously, I'm excited to be here as well. Looking forward to 2 days of learning as well as inspiration in the space of qualitative research. What I'm going to do today is we really have a case study for you. And this case study essentially talks about, if you look at the headline, is about humanizing digital qual. Now, we've been hearing about digital qual for quite some time. We've done it for the last 10 years. We talk about doing qualitative research online, digitally. We as a company also specialize in innovative methodologies, using videos, using long-term online communities, and mobile technology to understand people. That's essentially what a business is all about. So I have a case study to take you through where I'm going to be talking about how we help Speedo. Sorry, forgot that. Is it working? Yeah. How we help Speedo, a client based in the UK, to shape their digital strategy. So an interesting point of view that we have. So I'm not going to be talking about how to do digital qual research. I think most of us know that. But what I'm going to be talking about is how do we marry purist thinking or humanistic way of doing research with modern and innovative technology. That's essentially what this paper is going to be all about. The brief was very clear. A good starting point on a research project. If the brief is clear and the action standards are clear, yeah, we have a good start. Basically, Speedo said they wanted to be the leaders in the category. Obviously, the mission is all about inspiring people to swim, but the challenge was there are a lot of different facets, a lot of different kinds of people that they need to reach out to. We're talking swimmers, we're talking fitness guys, we're talking about understanding different communities that they have as well. They've got an online community, a group of people, advocates, whom they want to inspire and educate them as well. But at the same time, to have an e-commerce offer where they're trying to sell their products online. So from a business point of view, it was really about how can we shape digital strategy to go out there and get closer to consumers. Now, when we look at it from a research point of view, very clear research objectives. Let's understand the decision making, the consumer journey that they're doing, how they go about buying these different swimwear products that they have. People are part of different communities. There are fitness communities where I'm just part of a bicycling club, to there are swimming communities as well. How can we be part of these communities in an online context, because everything is about digital, and how we can educate these people to go out there and be, at the end of the day, buy Speedo products. At the same time, it was also about understanding e-commerce dynamics. So when you really look at that brief, while it might sound, let's do a usage and attitude study, but ultimately, if you dig deeper, what really Speedo wanted to do was really get closer to their consumers in the digital world. I think that's where the moment where we realized that, it's not so much about understanding people and what they like and don't like, but it's really about building long-term relationships with their consumers. And I think that at that moment where we felt that we need to approach slightly differently. It's really about building and developing that relationship. That was the essence of what I thought was the underlying requirement for Speedo on this particular project. Now, one thing that I've definitely learned about relationships is, and it's not just about going and understanding the other person's, what do they like, what do they not like. Case in point, 10 years back, trying to quote my wife, what does she like? She likes Shah Rukh Khan, a big Bollywood star. I have no interest in him. I had to go and see a few of his movies, try and understand what does she really like about him, and her other interest was all about books. So I had to actually go and figure out what's the best way that I can combine those things and then develop my relationship with her. I gifted her this huge, very expensive book at that point in time of Shah Rukh Khan, and she was very impressed. So I thought that was a tipping point in my developing my relationship with her. So it's not just about likes and dislikes. It's about having a a more engaging way to talk to people, to understand them, and then take that forward. And that's the approach that we had on this particular project. How do we really go about building deeper relationships with people in the digital world? We had a three-stage approach. The first thing that we did was culture and trends analysis. The second was a digital self-ethnography activity task, which was all about using the power of observation through videos. And the third thing was a co-creation workshop again. I think I'm going to talk about all of them in fairly details, but not so much about the culture and trends analysis. We internally obviously have a culture and trends practice. We've got a bunch of anthropologists and trends consultants who do that kind of work for us, which then supplements the primary research that we're doing. But the essence of what I'm going to be talking about today and some of the things that one should keep in mind when we look to do digital qual research is going to be around the self-ethno activities and some details around that. But like I said, I think when the moment we realize that it's really about understanding people and about building deeper relationships, the way we approached this particular brief was also slightly different. Now, it was about them. It was not about us. That's what the thought that we had when we looked to do anything on this research project. What do I mean by that? How we engage with people, how we talk to them, how we moderate the sessions that we have with them, the kind of ways we are asking them questions, the kind of flexibility that we're giving to them. It was all designed for catering to what the respondents wanted, the way they wanted it, how they wanted it. And that is essentially the essence of what we believe are some of the key principles when you're looking to do digital qualitative research. But at the same time, I think we, as qualitative researchers, or researchers in general, we also are always thinking about, how do I go and talk to these consumers? Is it groups? How do I structure my thinking and engage that? But what we also tend to do is we leave out an important stakeholder who is a client who just comes and attends these focus groups or depth interviews or consumer immersion sessions, goes back off, and then as a researcher, sits there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe 1 week in today's times, and has to turn around the project, and the client has no clue of what's happening in that process in terms of analysis. So that was the other thing that we realized. The engagement that we need to have needs to be two ways, not just from a respondent's point of view, or the people that we're talking and looking to understand, but from a client point of view as well. So again, a few thoughts which I'll talk about in detail later in terms of how we did that. Digital self-ethnography, the power of observation, the power of videos. Now, I think one of the biggest things that if you really look at giving the power of observation to people to do it themselves, to capture their realities by themselves, I think it makes it a lot more richer in terms of capturing the time when they want it, the way they want it, in the realities where they want to. I think that was one of the key things that we had to approach, in terms of this particular project. Give them the time, the flexibility to do and capture those videos when they want. So we obviously use a video task. We use VoxPopMe to kind of do this particular task-based activity. And when we're really looking at videos, I think given the scale and the scope of the project, it was a brilliant technique from our point of view to kind of do something like that, because both from a breadth perspective as well as the kind of depth that was required. Now we're talking 4 different markets. We're talking China, Germany, UK, and France. We're talking different kinds of people. We're talking coaches, swimmers, people who are part of fitness groups. At the same time, we're also kind of talking about the different type of the issues that we were looking to explore. While Speedo was clear that they want to become brand leaders, but in the space of e-commerce, in the kind of products, in the way they engage with consumers in the digital world, there are a lot of different issues that we're looking to understand as well. And what we believe is, if you were to approach this from a very standard and a traditional perspective, you're putting people in a group where you're talking to them about all those 4 issues. You're talking about brand leadership, you're talking about communities, you're talking about e-commerce, and me as a consumer might not be interested in community, for example. The only thing I'm interested to talk to you about is e-commerce. I can tell you a lot about e-commerce. I can tell you a lot about what I like about swimming or what I don't like about swimming and so on and so forth. So the videos task allows you to kind of customize how you engage with people. And that was the key thing, I think, that what we realized how we could do and manage this particular project. Sorry. So when we look to get into the process of doing digital qual, now there is obviously a recruitment. We're talking about the kind of tasks that we're doing with people and how we engage with people. Now from a process point of view, I think one thing that stands out is, or one thing which is very important when you do a project like this, is flexibility. You need to give flexibility irrespective of the kind of recruitments you do, in terms of the number of tasks or how you're asking those tasks for different people, as well as how you're kind of engaging with people as well. What does that mean? Recruitments. So obviously it's important that we talk to the right set of people. Now, how do we recruit these people? Now, the easiest way and the most traditional way to do it is go offline. This is a brief. Let's go out there and recruit these people. That's not what we did. Our approach was, this is a digital strategy brief. Let's look at a different way. We're looking to understand people in the digital world. We went out there and we used a multi-method in terms of recruitments as well, using panels, using social media, as well as using video research specialist panels, as well as Speedo's digital channels to go out there and recruit these people. And there were different and diverse set of people. We actually, fun fact being, we got a Olympic champion coach to be part of this project as well. And it would have been impossible to kind of get that person if you're just doing traditional offline recruitments. But I think the key thing was making sure that we recruit these people and look at it from a scale perspective. Because we're talking of a country like China, we're talking of a country like Germany, France, UK, different cities. Now, one of the constraints which Reena also talked about is money is always an issue. Timeline is always an issue. A video and a panel as a method of recruitment allows you to kind of manage some of those challenges that we have. When we look at the tasks that we were doing, again, I think, like I said, it was about managing depth, at the same time the breadth. And what was important when we talk about the task that we gave to these people was just making it customized to what they want to talk about. One of the topics or issues that we wanted to explore was, example, brand leadership. What makes brand a leader in the swimwear category? Or when you think about them from an e-commerce perspective. The task that we were asking people to do around those, the video task that we were asking people to do around those, was then customized based on how people have talked to us in the recruitment process as well. So I think that became very critical in terms of how we go and give those tasks. Now, I could do those tasks when I want to. You would get an email defining what the task was, for example, brand leadership. Now, it wasn't a specific set of questions that I'm answering. It wasn't about, so answer this, capture a video about this, and then talk about this. Brand leadership, that's the topic. Around that, we gave them a few prompts on what they could talk about, and then they were free to do, capture the videos based on what they wanted to talk about. So that was, again, an important method of how you get people to talk about what is important for them, not what is important for us from a research point of view. Yes, there are certain areas that we need to explore, but let them talk of what matters to them. Then we talk about moderation. Now, this was a big challenge for us. And why? We're talking about 20 people in each market across 4 different countries. And because it was a bespoke way of reaching out to people, so we actually had to customize every single email that we were sending to each person. So it was almost like having a 2-way conversation, an engagement, which is about, this is what it is, we would love to hear your thoughts around this. So every email to those about 80 to 100 people on this project, and there were quite a few emails that went out to these people, but given the number of tasks that we did, was customized in that sense. it had to be written in a different way. It had to be, customized to the needs of that particular respondent, because that person has already told us that what matters to them when they talked about recruitments. So this was a challenging task, to be honest, but I think the more you customize the research process, especially when you're talking digital qual, I think the level of engagement that you get from people in terms of sharing ideas, sharing their thoughts about issues is phenomenal in that sense. To just talk about some of the examples of the kind of videos that we got, and again, it was all a function of what people wanted to share, with what the kind of issue that they wanted to cover. I just want to show you a couple of videos over here. No volume.
I think one of the fitness brands leading the way in the digital space at the moment is Nike. The use of their catchy slogan, "Just Do It," through the hashtag on things like Instagram. So if I type "Just Do It" into Instagram, I'm bombarded with lots of different types of people from different fitness genres, different fitness categories like swimming, running, football, lots of things. And it's not just athletes, it's everyday people, different sizes, different backgrounds using it. And I think that stops fitness being out of their reach. It's more approachable, and I find it really motivational. Also through the hashtag on things like Pinterest, if I was to search motivational quotes, bombarded again with "Just Do It," lots of different Nike things, and maybe that's something Speedo could do, have this really catchy slogan that's embedded within lots of motivational quotes. That's a lot of things bloggers do, people, or I do on Instagram when I'm blogging or writing about my own fitness journey. I use these quotes and these images to accompany what I'm saying. Again with Nike, I think that online on your phone website for shopping is so easy. So from my own phone, I can customise my own trainers. They also have an option to tell you what trainers are best for your particular sport, what clothing is best for your particular body type. And I think that's something, again, Speedo can maybe do. What swimwear fits your body the best, because we are under that pressure to look a certain way. That kind of makes me think maybe there's a gap in the market for Speedo to potentially have this.
I think, yeah, that's just to give you a perspective in terms of how people were able to share videos. And if you notice, one is in-home, one is outside. Different contexts. The task was just capture a video about how you feel about brands, what influences you, what matters to you. Now you could do that in-home, you could do that when you're out swimming, after doing your fitness exercises. You could do it any way you want to. It just allowed us to then capture the whole context and where people were responding and talking about the issues which we kind of wanted to understand with them. So that was just an example of streams of video. We had about 800 over minutes of videos, 350 plus videos. And I'll talk about how we kind of mined all of that information later, but huge amount of information that we got. And I think the more videos or AV that you see in terms of, as an output, I think the more richer they are in terms of understanding people's realities as well. So that was the whole digital self-ethnography task and some of the key things that we need to keep in mind when we talk about a process of doing something like that. Now, the third part of this whole project was also co-creation. Now, we obviously recruited these set of people and did this digital task with them, but obviously they came from different parts of the country. We couldn't get them all together to come for one workshop in Birmingham or in Shanghai and other places as well. So what we did was we created this co-creation workshop session where it was all about taking those learnings forward in terms of developing more impactful and relevant ideas for Speedo. Now, I guess we've all done workshops, ideation sessions. So we did it slightly differently over here as well. Now, what was so different about it was three things. The first being, taking a step back again. Now, yes, we all do stakeholder interviews. We go and talk to our clients after the brief is commissioned. What do you want? What are your requirements? What's your strategy? What's your vision? And what are you expecting from this research? But what we did was, after we'd done the first two stages, we did the same thing again. Because these were people who were part of the project. They've got the results after this first stage of culture and trends analysis. They've looked at those videos because they had access to those videos. They could look at those videos as well. We were doing a lot of two-way conversations in terms of the the initial read, that the kind of analysis or new thinking that was coming through. But we again said, where we are, what are your expectations from this workshop before we kind of go into the stage of ideation. So that was the first thing that we did. The second was presentation. Now, when I say presentation, what do I really mean? So we got another set of 20 people, consumers, different backgrounds, to come in a session where we go out there and first actually present to them that this is what we've learned based on some of the people who were part of that group, as well as some new people that we kind of spoke to as well. So we actually presented it back, some of the key learnings that we had to that group, where the clients were obviously, Speedo was obviously sitting in that room, along with these consumers as well. And through that understanding, then we kind of took that forward in terms of, so how can we create more compelling ideas for Speedo? So that was a slightly different way to kind of approach the same ideation workshop, but doing it in a lot more engaging way. Because like I said, it was all about them rather than us in terms of how we want to engage, as well as what we want at the end of something like this. And then, like I said, it was a huge amount of data, but we had to kind of put it all together and go back to Speedo to say, what are the key things that you need to keep in mind when you're looking to develop your digital strategy? So again, a few things to keep in mind when you're doing something like that. One is structure. Like I said, it is 800 odd minutes of videos. You have to have a structure, how you kind of analyze it and start thinking around it. So we developed a sentiment tracker as well as a theme tracker. Now, again, might sound a bit fancy, but it was essentially putting all the videos as we were getting them into an Excel format and then trying to mine all that information together. But that was an ongoing process. It was constantly, as we get videos, we kind of slot them into different themes. We kind of slot them into certain sentiments that are coming out of those different videos that we're doing as well. And all of that obviously then makes sense when you kind of look at certain principles. It could be using behavioral economics to kind of understand why people are saying what they're saying and what it could do more. I'm short of time as well, but just to finish off in terms of some of the key things that came out, and I think again from a strategy recommendation perspective, we came up with this framework which talked about the B's of brand leadership, which we kind of gave back to Speedo in terms of being where they are, being part of their lives, being part of their workout, and being one of them. Some of the key things that they need to keep in mind if they want to be leaders in this space as well. Again, won't get into too much of detail around that, but in the end, if I have to really leave you with some 4 things to bear in mind when you think about digital qual research. And it's not just digital qual, but marrying humanistic approach with innovative technology of doing digital qual. Which are these 4 things? Being open, immersed, prepared, and tech savvy. Now, what does that mean? Let me start with being open. It basically means having ongoing conversations with your clients. A lot of the times, we researchers, want to sit in our own bubble of just doing a field work, then going back and doing our analysis by ourselves, and then coming to the client after 2 weeks and say, hey, these are the results. I think we need to make it a lot more two-way conversation and in an engaging process. The same way as being a lot more immersed in that whole process. Having smaller conversation with clients as you go along. It's not about putting a formal structure all the time. This is what we want to do. It's just ensuring that engaging with them all the time. Every few days, this is what's happening, this is what you think about it, and then shaping your conversations and your analysis as you go forward. You obviously need to be prepared for something like this. It is going to be huge work. It is, when you're talking about customizing every single email to each individual respondent, be prepared. And finally, yes, I heard the earlier presentation where we talk about there's not many changes that are happening in qual, but I guess people's lives are changing, the way they interact, they live their lives is also changing. So just being tech savvy and embracing technology and thinking of different ways of doing it is just a mindset, I guess. And we need to just go and try it. Sometimes we'll fail, but if you keep certain things in mind in terms of how we approach digital qual research, I guess it's likely to push our boundaries in terms of what we could do in the future. So that's pretty much it in terms of what our point of view is when we talk about humanizing digital qual and how we can get closer to people. Happy to take on any questions right now, later on as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Deepak. We do have time for 1 or 2 questions, if anybody has something they would like to ask before moving on to the next part. Yeah, there's a question right here in the middle.
Just for the record, I'm not going to ask a question every time somebody comes up. I'm just curious around your methodology, because you iterated a couple times that it's really about them, but I noticed that the study was unblinded. Can you comment on how that may have affected your findings by putting Speedo right out there in their mind?
Oh, to be honest, there's a big debate that goes in terms of should we not talk about the brand or should we talk about the brand? A lot of the work that we do is long-term online communities, and a lot of them, mostly about 90% or more of them, are actually branded communities. Now, our point of view on that is that people choose to be part of those communities, and the reason why they're being choosing to be part of that community is the fact that they feel there's a certain affinity with that brand. They want to engage with that brand. They want to be kind of contribute to the success of the brand in that sense, or share their point of view around that. So our underlying philosophy for a lot of the work that we do is that as a consumer, as a respondent, I choose to be part of this, and because it's also, like I said, it's a two-way conversation. We actually then go back to a lot of those people and say that this was the feedback, and this is what how it's impacted the work that the brand does. So there is a lot of debate around it, but we believe that ensuring that it's branded kind of makes it a lot more meaningful for people to engage on that community or the kind of work that we're doing. Does that answer your question? Any other questions, thoughts, challenges?
No? Okay, one last round of applause for Deepak.
Thank you.